The story opens with Subaru Natsuki trapped in a still world of darkness, where a shadowy woman keeps whispering, "I love you" at him. And he knows in his bones this presence is the witch of jealousy people call Satella. Her love is so heavy it feels like it breaks his thoughts and drowns his heart. And Subaru cannot even move or breathe until Garfield Tinsel suddenly crashes in and yanks Subaru out of the witch's grip. The sanctuary around them is turning into a black sea as the shadow spreads like a living tide, and Garfield drags Subaru across rooftops while the forest, the homes, and even the tomb get eaten by darkness. Subaru asks about everyone, and Garfield says Ram, Ryusu, and the others were swallowed, and his voice shakes with anger because he was barely blown clear by Ram's wind before the shadow took the rest. Subaru realizes the witch is leaving the sanctuary and heading toward Roswaal's mansion to take away anything that Subaru could love, because the witch wants to own all of his love for herself. He also realizes the barrier around the sanctuary should stop a half-elf like Satella just as it traps Emilia, so Garfield decides to fight her where the barrier will weaken her enough for him to land a real blow. When they prepare for the fight, many identical girls with Ryuzu Meyer's face step out of the forest and silently gather behind Garfield. And Subaru understands at last that the Ryuzu he met before was one of many copies made long ago. Garfield's plan is simple and brutal. He will charge head-on in his beast form, while the Ryuzu copies rush and explode as pale light to thin the shadow defenses, opening a path for him to tear the witch apart. They lure the witch, and the shadow leaps directly towards Subaru while ignoring everyone else. So Garfield transforms into a massive golden-furred tiger and hurls himself at her in a storm of fangs and claws. The shadow's tendrils bite into his limbs and then slip inside his wounds like knives, cutting him apart from within, and the Ryuzu copies impale and explode to crack open the wall of darkness. But it still is not enough to save him. In one breath, the beast's body is shredded and scattered as red mist, and Subaru watches Garfield die while the last lights of the Ryuzu copies fade, and the witch keeps walking forward, saying she loves him. Subaru rages at her for calling him Subaru in a sweet voice like someone dear, and he snarls that he would rather love Echidna and the other witches than her, and in that instant, the shadow swallows his world whole. Inside the shadow, Subaru's self starts to dissolve and mix with other swallowed lives like a blender, and he feels strange relief and satisfaction, as if being erased would end the pain. But a glimmer at his right wrist holds him back. It is Petra's white handkerchief that Echidna touched earlier, and it shines with a witch's trick to buy him a few seconds, enough time to make a terrible choice that Echidna quietly prepared for him. The light turns into a small dagger in his hand, and Subaru understands Echidna gave him a way to kill himself, because return by death is the only escape from the shadow that does not let the dead return. He stabs his own throat as the witch screams with a voice that is not "I love you," and as he drowns in blood, he reaches out and brushes the shadow's veil aside to see a face like Emilia's, with silver hair and purple eyes twisted by grief. He answers that face with a faint vow, "I will save you," and dies to reset the world. Subaru returns to the cold stone room of the tomb with dust on his tongue and pain in his throat. And Emilia lies beside him, still trapped in the trial of her past. He tries to wake her, but his fingers shake and his teeth clatter because his heart is still trembling at the memory of the witch's face looking like Emilia, and he fears the witch might have possessed her. He forces himself to touch Emilia's cheek, and when her eyes open and she quietly says his name, the heavy knot in his chest melts, and he understands this warm voice is nothing like that cruel love in the dark. Emilia sees his pain first and reaches to wipe the tears he did not notice, and Subaru breaks down while she hugs him gently and repeats that it is all right, that she is here, and she is herself. Later, Ram and Ottosuin greet them at the entrance after Emilia helps Subaru stand, and Ram teases him as a crybaby, while Otto blurts out that Ram actually worried, which earns him a cold glare. Garfield shows no hostility this time and smacks Subaru's shoulder with rough warmth, relieved they came back alive, and Subaru notes this loop is the most stable start he has had since he began fighting for the sanctuary. At Ryuzu's house, they talk about the trial and tomorrow's plan, and Emilia for once speaks with clear resolve, saying she will face it because it is her duty, and Subaru claps for her quietly in his heart. Subaru hides that he already took the first trial and met Echidna because he worries it might weigh on Emilia's mind, and he wants her to keep the strength she found so she can advance on her own. He decides not to chase the tomb again right away because meeting Echidna with nothing new to trade is just indulgence, and he wants results before asking the Witch of Greed for help. Subaru asks Ram for a favor to keep Garfield busy when needed, since Garfield's strength and suspicion can block any move toward leaving the sanctuary or reaching the mansion, and a straight fight would mean Subaru loses in one hit. Ram says she will listen because Roswaal told her to help Subaru, but she also catches that Subaru looks at her and sees someone else, and that truth stings because Subaru is haunted by Rem, whose existence is erased from everyone's memory. Subaru wants to tell Ram about Rem, but in another loop, Ram tried to sacrifice Rem once her memories were explained, and the despair of that world keeps Subaru from risking it now. He keeps moving, promising himself that this time he will collect real information, find new allies, and use his deaths only when they actually open a path forward. Emilia keeps taking the trial over and over through the night because she believes that patience will break the wall. But the pressure twists the sanctuary as snow begins to fall hard and pile up against the wind. Garfield confronts Subaru at the tomb entrance, asking where the half-elf girl is and why the snow is raging. And Subaru answers that Emilia is sleeping because she is exhausted and her mind is worn thin from too many tries. Subaru feels the exact same helplessness he felt when dying again and again, so he guards her rest and tries to hold back the place from tipping into chaos, even though the cold storm keeps screaming outside. Emilia later meets Subaru in the tomb after one of her attempts and comes close with a soft smile, stroking his hair and speaking with sweet devotion, saying she always believed he would come to save her if she did her duty. The words are kind, but Subaru's instincts say something is wrong because this smile and the sweetness are too much like a dream that wants him to drown in it, and the timing does not match the trial's usual rules. He tries to shift the talk and asks about the trial, but Emilia keeps pouring warm words, saying she loves him and wants him to stay with her forever, and the air feels sticky with a love that does not let it breathe. Her eyes look only at him and make the world vanish, and Subaru feels that same wrong closeness as when the shadow whispered love at him, and his throat dries because he knows love can smother as well as save. This is the moment the book turns toward the witch's space and the tests that measure Subaru's heart, and everything he does next will decide how he uses return by death and what he will accept or reject to reach his future. Part 4. Carmilla's False Mercy and the Rem Who Is Not Rem. Subaru is drawn into a dreamlike trial world watched by Echidna, where he meets a girl with long pink hair who shyly says she is Carmilla, the Witch of Lust, and this space bends feelings in quiet ways. Carmilla's power does not tempt with lust in a crude way, but rather softens minds with gentleness and pity, and she tests Subaru by showing him a version of Rem who hugs him and begs him to rest and leave everything to her. This Rem looks perfect in face and voice, and she presses close, telling him he has suffered enough and can sleep while she carries all the pain. And Subaru feels his soul sliding toward that easy end. He stops just before their lips touch and asks, "Who are you?" Because the real Rem, the Rem he loves and owes, would never tell him to give up, and she would never ask him to hand over his burdens and sleep. He remembers that under a blue sky, Rem told him to stand up after listening to all his weakness. And in that memory, she became the person who is most strict with him because she believes he can still walk. Subaru declares that his weakness belongs to Rem alone, and he will never show her the sight of him giving up. And he tells the fake to get lost because sweetness that asks him to surrender is a trap. The image breaks like television static, and the figure changes into Carmilla again, small and fragile looking, who seems confused that her kindness did not help because she thought easing pain was always good. Subaru's answer is simple. A love that tells him to stop and sleep forever is not the love that saved him, and he chooses the harsh warmth that pushes him to rise, even when he is shaking. This choice becomes the center of how Subaru will answer every witch in every path. He will accept help, but not the kind that steals his will, and he will not trade his courage for peace that is empty. Echidna brings Subaru to the witches' tea party again and speaks plainly about return by death as an authority that lets him redo the world under almost identical conditions, which to her researcher's heart is the ideal testing ground. She explains with shining eyes that his power allows countless trials to reach the proper result, and she craves to observe every branch because unknowns make her curious, even promising to support him with all her wit. Echidna says she will not force him to die, but she wants a contract so she can always advise him in the dream space while he uses his deaths to push forward, and she even offers comfort of body and mind in that realm. Her long speech is honest and cold at once, because she does care for him in her own way, but above that she loves knowledge, and she cannot promise to prioritize his heart over the answers she desires. Around them, the other witches appear at times. Minerva, who heals when she strikes, Typhon, who tests guilt with childlike cruelty, Sekhmet, who is lazy but frightening, Daphne, who bound the great beasts, and Carmilla, who showed false mercy. Subaru listens to the best bargain of his life and sees the trap, because a guide who wants every experiment can carry him to results but not protect the parts of him that break and cannot be repaired. He thinks of Emilia, of Ram, of Otto, of Beatrice, of the villagers, and of Rem asleep far away. And he sees that a path that treats his world like numbers is not the way he wants to save people he loves. So he refuses Echidna's contract even though it would make everything easier, and that firm no turns the tea party tense, because rejecting greed means rejecting the smoothest ladder to victory. The air grows heavier as the jealous love nears again, and a presence that keeps saying, "I love you," presses in. Because Satella comes even to this meeting between witches, drawn to Subaru as always. Echidna's smile goes hard, the other witches bristle, and Subaru stands on a knife edge between one love that wants to own him, one offer that wants to use him, and his own vow to walk forward on his terms. Satella's love presses on him like the night, and Echidna's logic glitters like ice, and both ask for a kind of surrender. But Subaru holds to his center and repeats the promise he made as he died in the shadow: he will save her. That promise does not mean accepting her love that erases the world, and it does not mean accepting Echidna's neat science that erases the heart, but it means he will keep his hands open to pull people back, even if it hurts. He decides that every death has to buy something real, and every loop must add truth, allies, and courage, and he will not die for nothing or live for nothing, because both are the same kind of loss. When the meeting ends, Subaru leaves the tea party with the weight of refusal, but also with a clearer map inside. He will protect Emilia as she struggles through her past, confront Roswaal's hidden schemes, and reach Beatrice at the mansion. He remembers the Ryuzu copies and Garfield's wild loyalty, Ram's sharp tongue with soft edges, Otto's awkward bravery, and Petra's white handkerchief that bought his life for a few seconds when everything was black. He chooses the hard road where he asks for help, takes the blows, and gets up again, because the love he wants is the kind that tells him, "Stand up," and the promise he gave with his last breath was a promise to act. Subaru steps out of the dream, determined to connect the sanctuary, the mansion, and every friend still standing, and to build a win that does not trade one precious life for another, even if it takes every loop he has left. He knows the witch of jealousy will come again, and he knows Echidna will tempt him again. But he also knows the face that wiped his tears and the voices that still call his name, and that is enough to move forward. Volume 12 closes with his refusal to be owned by love or used by logic, and with his quiet decision to carry a heavier burden in exchange for a future where everyone he names can stand up with him.